Before you introduce yourself, can you briefly describe what the dried fish industry is in Bangladesh?
The dry fish industry in Bangladesh is a significant contributor to the country's economy, as well as a major source of protein for the population, actually. Industry primarily involves the drying the small fish such as crabs and sardines, which are caught in the Bay of Bengal. Dried fish is exported to the countries in the, especially in the Middle East, Africa, and Southeast Asia, as well as to the Bangladeshis. However, the industry has faced challenges in recent years due to overfishing and declining the fish stocks, as well as issues with food safety and sanitation.
Thank you for sharing that context and background for us. I think that's an industry that many people on this call might not be as familiar with. Can you introduce yourself and your work with child labor in the dried fish industry?
My name is Tanvir Sharif, and I'm actually a development practitioner since 2009. And in most of the years of in my professional career, just I work for the child. I work for the child rights. Right now, I'm working here for a NGO named ECLAB, and here in Cox's Bazar, and for the Rohingya Response Program and some other international development projects, actually. For the dried fish industry, I work for Windhoek International and in a project named Child Labor Improvements in Bangladesh, and which project was funded by US Department of Labor. I got opportunity of working with the community people and also the national policy makers. And so I got some different kind of experiences for gathering my knowledge and also to do something for the dried fish industry's children. I was the spokesperson from my that project in some to raise some local issue to the national level, and I involved in the community awareness activities and also the research kind of activities. And I was involved in the also the directly involved with the a comprehensive research study of dried fish industry in Cox's Bazar. And I also involved working with the local and national level child labor monitoring committee. So I know the practices right now in all over the Bangladesh, that how they are controlling and maintaining the child labor issues, especially for the dried fish industries. When we started working for that project, that there are 38 hazardous sector which was announced by the government of Bangladesh, which are hazardous for the children. But right now, it's last year the government added more five sector with this, and dried fish also one of the sectors. And this is one of our success for the national level advocacy, and we try to raise the voices from the local level to the national level, and we try to understand them that yes, this is the very vulnerable situation they are passing in the dried fish industry, especially for the children.
You mentioned that the children are particularly vulnerable in this industry, but
Yeah.
what are those factors that make children especially vulnerable?
Okay, the children in the dried fish industry are particularly vulnerable due to a variety of factors, actually. And first of all, this is a physical vulnerability. Children are most susceptible to injuries and illness than the adults. And the hazardous working condition in the dried fish industry can put them at risk. Those children are involving in the child labor in the dried fish sectors. Among all of them, 86% of the children are carrying heavy weights. and 53% among them using sharp tools, 44% among that children standing in the water. This information was not available when we started. Besides these, we see that lack of education is a big problem for the children who are involving in the child labor in dried fish sector. Actually, they are often take out of school, which limits their opportunities for education and also the future employment. Besides, we see that a lot of exploitation over there. Children are often paid less than adults and may be forced to work long hours and in the very dangerous conditions. Actually, they are working. They may also be subjected to the verbal and physical abuse by the employers. Actually, but we also find some. Data regarding this exploitation or violation actually, and we see the sexual harassment among 34% of children, among them 51% are girls and also 49% are boys. Actually, we see the sexual exploitation in the with the child labor in the dried fish sector, and this is a very alarming issue that we see a limited access to healthcare. The biggest dried fish processing zone here in Cox's Bazar is Nazira Tech, and you will not find any kind of health service provider over there. And if they got sick, they just come to the government hospital, but which is so far from their locality. And the social isolation is also a problem. Children working in the dried fish may be isolated from their families and communities. They are not having the social support from the local leaders sometime, because local leaders are also involving in this business. And this kind, that Cox's Bazar is a very vulnerable in the sense of social cohesion, because uh, extra pressure from the Rohingya refugee, that it creates too many problems, and sometimes clash between the refugees and host community. This kind of problem, and we also find the child labor from the refugee community in the dried fish sector, and this is also a very big alarming issue actually.
Yes, so I hear you mention lots of different factors such as
Yeah.
lack of healthcare, lack of education, the physical vulnerabilities, social isolation, and so on, so on. Do you think that these factors are unique to Bangladesh?
Yes, because health issues for the children is very unique in the dried fish. There are too many sectors where children are involving in the child labor. But I already mentioned few things which are unique for the dried fish. And uh, this is a very what can I say, vulnerable picture. If you visit any dried fish processing enclave, and if you just call any children to you, and if they showed you their hands, you will see lot of rashes, lot of skin problems they are having because of um, their work nature. And you know that in the supply chain or value chain process of dried fish industry, children are involved from catching fish to selling fish. They also go to the deep sea for catching fish, and they also involve in picking fish from the fisherman, and they are also involving in the processing production, and they are also involving in the selling process. So they have lot of hazard, but in some other industries we don't see this kind of problem. So dried fish is very unique in this sense.
Wow, definitely didn't know that They're
Mm.
involved from in all aspects of the supply chain. In one of your previous answers, you mentioned that the funding came from the Department of Labor. What happens when international funders, such as the Department of Labor, U.S. Department of Labor, leave?
First of all, we want to thank from Bangladesh people's side that U.S. Government and U.S. Department of Labor started the project, and it has lot of achievement. After ending a 3-year project, we see lot of achievements. Uh, this project directly involved to updated the national plan of action, and with the help of this project, there are a lot of committees in national level and local level from the government side. But after ending that project, we see these committees become inactive. And if local level committees, this kind of committees are inactive, become inactive, we don't get the updated data that how many child labor are present now in dried fish or in Cox's Bazar. Without fund, we don't even organize a meeting sometimes. And so and the root of the social problem is always child labor. Child labor related project needs long term support, because this 2 years or 3 years project, not, yes, co- it's bring some immediate result, but for the long time result, it needs some big term project. But we don't know why that right now international funders are not that much interested of starting any project regarding this. Yes.
But what other progress, if any, has been made since the project by the Department of Labor has ended?
On that time, we organized too many programs in television and radio for the awareness raising of the people. We organized too many community awareness program. On that time, we had also some grievance mechanism team, those who just minimize the grievance among them. But this team also abolished after ending that project. So progress happened. Progress happened. They know that child labor is not good for their children, but the reality is, when you have the need of the food in your stomach, this awareness raise kind of thing will not work. So continuous support, especially in the livelihood issue, continuous support in awareness raising, continuous support to their health, education, recreation will make the changes. Yeah.
What else can be done at the local, national, and international level to reduce child labor in industries such as the dried fish industry?
At the local level, actually, that community-based organizations, NGOs can raise awareness about the negative effects of child labor and provide education and vocational training for children and their families. But here need fund. Government can also enforce laws and regulation that prohibit the use of child labor, and provide incentives for the companies to adapt the ethical labor practices. This is very unfortunate that the civil society organization, even the NGO workers, those who are working in this field, don't know the laws and policies. So government should need to take some initiatives to train about the child labor laws and policies among the CSOs and NGO workers, and also the community people, especially to the parents, that if you do this, this is the law and you have to go by this way. And government can develop and implement policies and programs to address the root cause of child labor, such as poverty and a lack of access to education. if we want to just to remove the children from the child labor, that we must have to give them some another way to survive. Countries can work together to set standards and establish regulations to prevent child labor in industries such as dried fish industry, and international organizations such as ILO can provide technical assistance. And furthermore, customers, those who are consumer actually, and customers can also play a role in reducing child labor by supporting companies and products that have been certified, must certified as not using child labor in their supply chains.
Thank you very much, Tanvir, again for joining us today and for
Yeah.
your sharing your expertise with us. I think it's a good reminder for everyone on this call today that we don't have to be in any special positions to make a difference. You know, as consumers, we could help end child labor, like you said, by being aware of where our products come from and
Yeah.
only participating or purchasing things from companies that are ethical and are not using that type of labor.
Yes.